As you notice, we didn't have a little time for joys and sorrows because the service is about joy, and we'll talk about sorrows as well. And so you'll have an opportunity to do some sharing in a different form today. But we start with talking about joy and what is it, because, I want to kind of explore that before we participate in trying to feel joy. But I wonder, when I say, what is joy, what you think? I mean, how would you define joy? Anybody raise your hand? How would you define joy?
Being with friends.
Being with friends. Do you have a different one?
Just more generally,
Happiness or bliss, okay. Well, I want to say a couple of things. We each obviously define joy a little differently and experience it in different ways and at different times. So it may be, as American writer E.B. White wrote about humor, also applies to joy. Analyzing humor, or joy in this particular case, is like dissecting a frog. Few people are interested, and the frog dies. Well, regardless, they may be. We're still going to explore joy and dissect it a little bit this morning, and I promise no frogs will be injured in the process. Irma Zelinsky, one of Canada's most popular writers about spirituality, says of joy, in the language of religion, joy is not merely a human emotion, but a spiritual experience. Joy comes to us from a place outside of ourselves and from some place so deep that we cannot reach it at will. Joy is a song of the soul, a spontaneous response of the human spirit when it is able to step away beyond the confines of its own ego and find itself in the presence of, the presence of something beyond. Mystery, God, spirit, humanity. She goes on to say, joy is an inner experience. It is difficult to categorize it and put it into words. So when you experience joy, it's difficult to put it into words. Each human being must find their own path that leads to the door that opens for joy. Joy comes in small doses, she says, in little whispers of the holy, in sudden glimpses of unexpected mystery, and in the midst of our ordinary lives. These things don't come that often. Wherever joy comes from, she says, it is always an experience of losing oneself, of being emptied of the self, open to what is beyond. And she finishes her article with this: the true source of joy is love. Love of the holy, love of beauty, love of wisdom, love of another human being. It doesn't matter which. It's all about love. A joyful awareness of dissolving boundaries of our own ordinary narrow self and of being with the reality beyond, and thus made whole. I don't know so often if you've heard of too many Unitarian Universalist jokes. Some of you may have, but I'm going to share one with you this morning and see how it goes. Do you know the old joke that if a Unitarian Universalist were given the choice of going to heaven or going to a discussion about heaven, which they would choose? What do you think? A discussion about heaven, that's correct. Given our preferences for discussions, I thought it might be useful for you to hear what a Unitarian Universalist thinks about joy as well this morning. Reverend Frederick John Muir starts by affirming the Unitarian Universalists tend to be in their head, rational, logical. Then he goes on to say, but irrational originally meant knowledge received from our senses rather than from logical thought. This is a pretty fitting description of what I call the human spirit. It's sensual, irrational, illogical. So logical isn't its standard. The point, he says, that Muir says, is to be able to feel good, to be ecstatic, to experience joy. The human spirit's home is not in the head, but in the soul, in the depths of our human beingness. Joy, he says, is what the human spirit expresses out into the world. Joy is just sitting there waiting inside of us to erupt like a sleeping but active volcano, just waiting for the right conditions. It's there, the irrational side of all of us. In all of us, that sensual and feeling, exuberant joy is in there. It's called ecstasy in comparison to happiness. Mere happiness isn't enough. And I'm going to share one more thought about joy this morning. But before I do, another Unitarian joke. A visitor to a Unitarian Universalist church sat through the sermon with growing incredulity at the heretical ideas being spouted from the pulpit. After the sermon, a UU asked the visitor, "So what did you think? Did you like it?" And the visitor he was just all upset, sputtered. He said, "I can't believe half of the things that minister said." And the Unitarian responded, "Oh, good, you'll fit right in here." In that spirit, let's continue dissecting joy. Archbishop Tutu and the Dalai Lama wrote a couple of books about joy, one for adults and one for children. They believe that joy can be transformed from an ephemeral state to an enduring trait, from a fleeting feeling to a lasting way of being. Tutu goes on to say, as we discover more about joy, we can face suffering in whatever way that ennobles us rather than embitters us. We can have hardship without becoming hard. We can have heartbreak without having our hearts broken. They too believe that joy comes from inside us. Power and money, they say, will not bring inner joy. Joy simply depends on the attitudes, the perspectives, and the reactions we bring to situations and to our relationships with other people. They believe we can incorporate joy through joyful practices, and that these joyful practices can help us better manage stress especially in this ever-changing, complicated world, can help us be more resilient and help us to resist the negative emotional, physical, and spiritual impact that seeing injustice and oppression around us can have on us as we work to make the world a better place. They assert that there are 8 pillars of joy, 4 of the mind and 4 of the heart. The mind pillars are having a wider and larger perspective on life, being humble, finding humor, laughing and joking, and finally, acceptance of all life with its pain, imperfections, and its beauty. And the four pillars of the heart are forgiving yourself and others, freeing yourself from the past, expressing gratitude for being alive and for all the small and large blessings that this life offers, compassion, concern for the well-being of others as a source for happiness, and being generous with our time, treasure, and talent. I think I've talked a bunch about joy now. As good Unitarian Universalists, you will have to decide what joy means to you and how to be open to it yourself. Whether joy is something you foster in your lives, or whether it is something spontaneous and spiritual and ephemeral, or both. Yes, as Unitarian Universalists, we can believe in both. I will ask you in just a little while to try some experiences with joy. There'll be 4 stations of joy this morning. And what I'd like you to do is to keep in mind as you go to each of these stations the 8 pillars that Tutu and the Dalai Lama offer: perspective, humility, humor, acceptance, forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, and generosity. Perhaps doing so will offer some insight or wisdom as you enjoy yourselves.
The Little Book of Joy was written by Nobel Peace Prize winners His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. They share their own childhood struggles to show young readers how they can thrive and find joy even during the most challenging times. They both agreed that if you just focus on the thing that is making you sad, then the sadness is all you see. But if you look around, you will see that joy is everywhere.
The Little Book of Joy with Douglas Abrams and Rachel Newman. One of us grew up in a little house. One of us grew up in a big house. Our houses were on opposite sides of the world. Often we were sad and lonely. Both of us wished for a friend. Sometimes the other kids wouldn't let us play, or they were very far away. We wondered if we would always be sad and lonely. But when we sat still and breathed in the quiet, we noticed something beautiful. If you just focus on the thing that is making you sad, then the sadness is all you see. But if you look around, you will see that joy is everywhere. Joy is the warm, tingling feeling of the sun tickling your toes in the morning. It's the giggly, squiggly feeling when you're doing something silly. And it's the soft, snuggly feeling of being all wrapped up, cozy in your bed at night. Even when you're caught in the rain and your joy is washed away, it's waiting at the bottom of the puddle. Even if you slam the door and your joy can't get in, it's just on the other side, waiting in a loving hug. And even if there's a loud noise in the night and your joy is scared away, It comes streaming right back with the light of the silvery moon. Joy is the bubbling, bouncing feeling of finding a good friend. And once you let joy in, like magic, your heart always has room for more. We discovered that the more joy we shared, the more joy we had. And the more joy we had, the more joy we could share. So look for the joy all around you and share it. Write it in a letter. Play it on a drum. Sing it to the sky. It will travel up in the air, across the ocean. Someone will find it and share it. And as it spreads from person to person, the world will fill with joy.
Now, I have set up 4 joy stations. For the next 10 minutes or so, you can go to each one of these stations. You can go to 1, 2, 3, 4 if you like. You may just want to stick with one. I will ring a chime when we're done. You're invited to use these each as you wish. Let me describe each of them to you. This is Station 1, Joy Station 1. It's called Letting Go. Whether you are experiencing some sadness, anger, resentment, pain, or any other unpleasant sensation or emotion, write it on a piece of paper, tear it up in little pieces, and throw it up in the air joyfully. And you can repeat that as many times as you want. Joy Station number 2 is to draw a picture of something that has brought you joy, to be able to share that with this community. And there's a bulletin board on the back. It's a blue bulletin board. You can put your pictures back there if you like. And this was number 3, and if the weather holds out, that's going to be good, because what I'm inviting you to do here is to go out onto the property anywhere you like, find something that gives you joy, and take a picture of it. And then if you will text that picture, email that picture to facilities@uumiami.org, and we're going to share them at the end of the service. So you can do that if you like. And then Joy Station number 4 is drumming. In the Emerson room, there are drums set out, and you're welcome to go in there and drum to your heart's content. It's across the breezeway. For those of you who are first here, you haven't been here before, it's through the breezeway. It's right over there on the left, the Emerson room. But before we can begin to experience joy, Bob is going to come up here and share with us a moment of joy.
I'm Bob Jacober. Good morning, everybody. UU Sunday starts our week. I love our Sunday meetings where we get a chance to speak and hear advice on how to be our very best for you and me and contribute to our community. We spread love and peace, our way to be much better than assault and battery. Let's join together under Florida's sun and enjoy our tribal UU fun. Now, in view of the possibility of rain, I add this. Good morning, friends. I'm here to say the endless rain gives me a bad hair day. Let's stay inside, all safe together, protected well from rainy weather. Thanks.
And now, in the spirit of love and joy, I invite you to participate in whichever station of joy you like, and I will ring a chime to bring everybody back. I'm going to open this door if you want to go outside.